Hello and welcome back to the Life Nurse podcast. This week there were many different pieces of news in the watch world that were released, which is quite exciting. Obviously, I think in the past couple of podcasts we haven't had too much to speak about in the way of new watch releases, but we have a couple of new watch sort of pieces of news that we'll discuss in this podcast. If you are new to Life Nurse podcast, our main focus is obviously our website where we cover vintage watches, and our real focus is to create educational articles that dive into the histories of vintage watches. And at the same time, we hope to sort of provide videos that allow you to see and interact in some way with the pieces that we sort of dive into from a historical perspective. Obviously, we're going to cover other things on Life on the Wrist. It's not just exclusively that, but that's really the purpose of the website. And so, over the last couple of years, we have covered some of the modern side of watches, new watch releases, modern events that take place in the watch world. But what's been a really nice sort of divergence is we've kind of moved that side of Life on the Wrist to our podcast. And it's quite fun to kind of look at what's going on in the modern day of watchmaking and cover the topics here. I think it's also a really nice place to provide you with an easy to consume piece of media that, you can put this on while you're driving to work, or if you're, at work, or perhaps, going to the gym or walking around the city. It allows you just to consume this sort of new watch releases or the news in modern watches in a very easy way. So I've really enjoyed sort of this side of it. I'll start off this week's podcast with a launch party that happened this past week, which was with Victoria Beckham. Her brand launched their first watch collection with Breitling, which was really exciting. It's really funny. I'll say this maybe at first. When I think of Posh Spice, I always think of David Beckham. I played football for most of my life, and whenever I think of them, it's kind of like they're an item. So when I saw that there was a collaboration with Breitling, I was like, wait a second, David's sponsored by Tudor. Why are we doing Breitling? But I have to remember that Posh Spice is an extremely talented individual who has created an incredible brand in Victoria Beckham. And this time she's teamed up with Breitling to release her first collection of timepieces. And what they did was she collaborated, or I guess her brand collaborated with Breitling to release the new Chronomat 36 Victoria Beckham. Excuse me. The watch is available in stainless steel or gold, and is a time and date model that with an integrated bracelet, and you can either have a bold blue or green dial, which I think is really nice. You can also choose a silver dial with a stainless steel model, or a champagne dial with the gold model. I think this is really incredible because it kind of helps mark the 140th year in business that Breitling has had, and they're quite nice pieces. There was a really great launch party, I believe, in NoHo in New York City to launch these watches, which I think drew a lot of eyes towards it. And regardless of what you think about this collaboration, I will say that this Chronomat 36 is, they have created some really elegant pieces. These are the sort of typical sort of sports watches that have become very, very popular over the last 10 years with their integrated bracelets, really round classic designs, and overall look extremely nice. Obviously, at a 36 millimeter size, you're looking at probably trying to, I guess what they're trying to do is attract women to wear these pieces. However, 36 millimeters can easily be worn by a man. I would absolutely wear it, wear a 36 millimeter piece, which is quite cool. They're also priced I'm not going to say affordable, but in a place where I think the market would be able to, buy these at. It's got a Breitling cost certified movement, the caliber 10 movement, and it ranges from $5,600 US in the stainless steel versions of these pieces, and then the yellow gold versions up to 30,000, or I guess 29.5 USD. Which are limited to just 100 pieces. So you have the range in prices, but you have a really interesting design, quite classic. I know a lot of people are not, there's there's differing opinions on if watches need the date function. The date's at 6 o'clock. You know, it's a personal preference on if you like having dates on your pieces or not. What I also really like is if you look at the end of the second hand, instead of just having the B for the Breitling logo, they've actually added an additional line that makes the B into a VB, which is obviously Victoria Beckham, which I think is quite a nice little touch. So really cool release from Breitling. I will say that it's quite interesting that last week we spoke about green dials, and now we have this Chronomat 36 that has this green dial. I don't know the backstory of why the green dial was included in this launch, but again, we're seeing that color, the pop of color come through, and that pop of color is maybe the year. This is the year of the green pieces, maybe. Moving on to a piece of something that's going to happen in the auction world. Next month, 11 complete suitcases of Mission to Moonshine MoonSwatches will be auctioned off at Sotheby's, with 100% of the proceeds benefiting Orbis, a charity dedicated to blindness prevention, with which Omega has been associated since 2011, and the auction will take place from February 12th to February 24th. I know that we've spoken at length about the Swatch collaborations that they've done, and I'm sure that some of you might be tired of speaking about these because there is obviously a lot of hype around these pieces, and it feels like there's just endless amounts of these watches coming out. But at this sort of price point, it makes sense. Well, not make sense, but it allows for that to kind of happen. But it's another pretty cool step in the sort of the history of these MoonSwatches. From an Omega and Swatch perspective, I think this is it's been a great commercial success, and yet again another way that they can kind of make sure that they're in the not limelight, but they're being spoken about in the news about watches, and continuing their story of this incredible collaboration that they've come up with. From Sotheby's side, I think it's another interesting move. I think Sotheby's has been one of the auction houses that has recently, in the last couple of years, really come to life. I think Jeff Hess coming on board, and I think there's just some firepower behind Sotheby's that they've started to sort of starting to show the watch industry, and I'm really excited about that, because it's never fun when you have kind of one auction house dominating the auction landscape. So it's nice that Sotheby's is really doing some more here, and it allows them again to be part of the conversation when it comes to the MoonSwatches. And also, I mean, these are 11 complete suitcases of these pieces, and are I think this is, no matter what your opinion is on this Omega Swatch collaboration, either way, this is something that's going to be historic and should be considered, because if you are looking to buy these pieces, these suitcases are going to be very, very sought after. So will be interesting to see how these will do. One of the suitcases is going to be on display at 11 Omega boutiques around the globe from February 1st to the 11th, including Zurich, Tokyo, Bangkok, Singapore, Hong Kong, Beijing, New York, London, Milan, Paris, and Sydney. So pretty cool. The suitcases will also contain a golden monocle with the Omega Swatch logo and a coin engraved with the three-letter aviation code from their display city. So if it's the USA, it's going to be JFK. If it's Hong Kong, it's going to be HKG, etc., etc. So you actually are going to have the opportunity to buy something that might be special for that specific display location. And I think that will also be something that people will be looking for. So I'm excited to see what these cases end up selling for. Next, Longines launched a watch, one of their Conquest Heritage Central Power Reserve watches. These pieces are a sort of ode to the conquests that were originally launched in 1945, which were mainly straight up and down three-handers, which with a really nice, beautiful design. What they have released is a tribute piece that actually takes inspiration from a model that was released in 1959, which was a 35mm Conquest with a novel Power Reserve display displayed centrally, that was thanks to a rotating disc. It's kind of an unconventional way of displaying this power reserve, but it was a unique way that Longines sort of differentiated themselves from these pieces. For this special series of watches, Longines revived this power reserve and placed it in front and center on the dial of a 38mm piece that's powered by the L896.5 movement with a 72-hour power reserve and silicon balance spring. The watch is offered with a champagne, anthracite, or black dial, and I think is an extremely attractive piece. What's really cool is, I think reviving some of these older technologies that aren't very, very common in today's watches, I think is a nice way of paying tribute to the past. And doing something like this with this Conquest and essentially turned power reserve disc, I think is a really nice way of doing so. What's really interesting about this piece is there is a date complication at 12 o'clock, which watches obviously have them, but is not a place that you typically look for the date. But I think it's done really, really nicely by Longines. I am a huge fan of Longines, both on the modern and the vintage side. I think on the vintage side, there are some incredibly interesting pieces that they have produced, and we've covered many of them on the channel, on lifeandthirst.com, as well as our YouTube channel, because Longines was producing watches that really competed with the best of the best during the eras that I've covered. And I think on the modern side, I think Longines is an incredible place to collect, especially if you like the vintage side of things, but you want modern proportions and modern technology. Their heritage line of pieces are incredible, and I have a huge amount of respect for Longines. I actually, if people ask me to suggest a brand, I always start with Longines because I do think that they produce some really interesting things in the modern side of things. So I'll leave a link in the show notes, obviously, to all the things that we're discussing today. So check the show notes if you want to see some more pictures of these pieces. Lastly, I do want to cover a watch that was released from Hodinkee, which is a limited edition G-Shock Reference 5600, titled, it's the G-Shock Reference 5600 by Ben Clymer. If you don't know who Ben Clymer is, I'm surprised, but I'll give you a brief overview. Ben Clymer is the founder of Hodinkee, which is one of the most important watch publications in the world. Hodinkee has been collaborating with G-Shock to produce some interesting pieces. One that was kind of a collaboration with Ed Sheeran. They've also collaborated with John Mayer to produce some pieces that they really like. And this time, Ben Clymer is sort of the collaborator for this G-Shock Reference 5600. To kind of quote their literature, this is really a thank you for the last 15 years. Here's to the next 15 and more. The watch is designed for Hodinkee, the Hodinkee community, by none other than the guy who started it all. What's really cool is there's some nods to some old divers, some colors that belong to some of the Hodinkee limited edition family. There's a few Easter eggs on these watches as well. There's a really cool inscription on the case back that was a saying that came from Henry Graves Jr. That is in Latin, and I believe it is to be rather than to seem. It's a slogan that I think Ben has he's written about it. He has not forgotten it since he heard it, and he tries to live his life by it every single day. What's really cool is, another really cool thing about this Reference 5600 is that they wanted to give back by paying it forward, and so $5 of every watch sold will go to the Horological Society of New York, which is the USA's oldest watchmaking guild, which is really great. That's trying to support the advancement of watchmaking through education, and I think that's an incredibly great thing that this watch is going towards. Whatever your opinions are on G-Shock, whatever your opinions are on Ben Clymer, it's hard to not think that without Ben Clymer, there would be no watch community, or the watch community would be a very different place. And so, regardless if you like this watch or not, regardless if you like Ben Clymer or not, regardless if you like Hodinkee, this is a very significant watch in the sort of watch community. And I just want to take my moment really to say thank you very much, Ben Clymer. Thank you very much, Hodinky, for everything that you've done, because I'm not sure I would be running Life on the Wrist today. I'm not sure if the Life on the Wrist podcast would be going if Hodinky wasn't around, if people didn't feel comfortable, if people like Ben didn't feel comfortable at sharing their interests in watches and publishing videos and articles and really inspiring watch collectors to create a community that wasn't just on the forums. It created meetups and it created friendships, and I have a huge amount of respect for everything that Hodinky has done, for everything that Ben has done, and this piece symbolizes that. And I really do hope that this is just the beginning. This is cliche, but this is just another step in the watch community's sort of lifespan, and I hope it continues. And if you are interested in picking up this piece, I'll leave a link in the show notes, because it's a beautiful piece, and I think a historically significant one at that. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Life on the Wrist podcast. Let me know on Instagram or on our website what you think about this episode. I'd love to talk about watches with you, so you can send us a message on our website or on social medias, on Life on the Wrist social media accounts. I'd love to talk about those. There'll be links in the show notes to all of our accounts, our website, our YouTube channel. All of it will be in the show notes, as well as the topics that we spoke about in today's podcast. If you are new to the Life on the Wrist podcast, be sure to follow us so you are the first one to listen to this podcast when we publish every Tuesday. So be sure to follow us and share this with a friend who might be interested in watches. With that said, guys, thank you so much for listening to this podcast, and until next time.